Have you ever wondered why just one bad night of sleep can make your entire workday feel, well, completely impossible? You absolutely know the feeling. You toss and turn all night, and then the next day, an email that normally wouldn't even faze you suddenly makes you want to literally throw your laptop out the window. You're overwhelmed, you're stressed, and honestly, you're emotionally drained before lunch even rolls around. Well, today we're going to validate that modern struggle. We're diving into the massive and often totally ignored connection between work-life stress, the quality of our sleep, and our daily emotional breaking points. And spoiler alert, it is not just in your head. There's some profound clinical science behind exactly why this happens.
To really get a handle on this, I love this powerful analogy from Dr. Gregory Jantz. He says emotional equilibrium is like being a skilled sailor. You don't try to control the weather or the waves, you learn to navigate them skillfully, adjusting your sails as needed while keeping your vessel steady. Think about that. We can't just magically eliminate the stress of our modern demanding lives, right? We can't stop the waves from crashing. But through the clinical concepts we're going to explore today, we absolutely can learn how to adjust our sails.
So welcome to this explainer. I'm super thrilled you're here with us. Today, we are setting the stage for a really fascinating deep dive into the clinical mechanics of stress and emotional balance. If you're a focused learner looking to figure out exactly how to navigate your professional demands while actually protecting your mental health, well, you're in the right place. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Work-Life Stress Epidemic. Let's be real, modern technology and a million external factors have pretty much completely erased the boundaries between our personal and professional lives. To understand this stress, we can look at two major psychological frameworks, role theory and boundary theory. Role theory, which was established by Kahn, basically tells us that we all have multiple roles competing for our attention. You're an employee, a parent, a spouse, a friend. Boundary theory, on the other hand, deals with the actual lines we draw around those roles. And because of our tech-heavy world, those lines are blurring fast. When the expectations of your work role constantly intrude on your home life, like, say, checking emails at the dinner table, you experience intense role conflict. And the direct result of all that conflict? Emotional exhaustion and just straight-up burnout. Which brings us to Section 2, your window of tolerance.
Okay, there is this brilliant neurobiological concept that dictates exactly how much stress we can actually handle before breaking down. It was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's called your window of tolerance. Basically, this is the optimal zone of arousal where you can function normally in your everyday life. When you're operating inside this window, you feel like you can deal with whatever is thrown at you. Sure, you might feel some stress or pressure, but it doesn't really derail you. You can effectively manage your emotions. It's the absolute ideal place to be.
But what happens when we get pushed outside that window by traumatic or stressful triggers? Well, we swing to one of two extremes. The first is hyperarousal. This is when your body's fight or flight response totally takes over. You feel anxious, angry, overwhelmed, and just completely out of control. The opposite extreme is hypoarousal. This is a shutdown response. Your body just freezes, you feel spacey, zoned out, numb, or totally disconnected. And as you can probably guess, neither of these states allows for healthy emotional regulation.
Now here is the absolutely crucial point. Chronic work-life stress and trauma don't just push you outside your window, they literally shrink it. Yeah, when your optimal zone of tolerance narrows, it means it takes much, much less of a trigger to throw you off balance. And that's exactly why a single, slightly annoying email can suddenly make you want to either explode in anger, which is that hyperarousal state, or totally shut down and just stare blankly at your screen, which is hypoarousal.
Moving into Section 3, the science of emotion regulation.
Let's transition into the actual neuroscience and psychology of how our brains process all these intense feelings. Because at the core of emotional regulation, there's actually an internal battle happening right inside your head. On one side, in the red corner, we have the amygdala. This area processes emotional stimuli and triggers immediate, reactive, and often fear-based responses. On the other side, we have the prefrontal cortex. Its whole job is to step in, modulate those immediate reactions, and make sure your emotional response is balanced, logical, and actually aligns with your long-term goals. Your emotional equilibrium relies heavily on the healthy interplay between these two brain regions.
Psychologically speaking, we can actually map out exactly how to intercept this internal battle. We're looking at James Gross's process model of emotion regulation. Now, I know it might look a little complex at first glance, but it brilliantly illustrates the exact timeline of how an emotion is generated. It maps the whole journey from the initial situation on the left to how we pay attention to it, how we appraise it cognitively,
all the way down to our final behavioral and physiological response on the right. The coolest part is we can simplify Gross's academic chart into highly digestible, actionable intervention points. You can basically intercept an emotion in 4 specific ways. Number 1, situation selection. That's just choosing to avoid a stressful setting altogether. 2, attentional deployment. This means consciously shifting your focus away from the frustrating part of a situation. 3 is cognitive change, which is reframing the meaning of the event in your mind. Or number 4, response modulation. That's managing your physical reaction after the emotion has already hit you, like taking some deep breaths to calm your nervous system down.
Let's move to Section 4, the sleep and mental health loop.
Okay, we really have to look at the massive bidirectional impact that sleep has on our ability to actually execute any of those emotional regulation strategies we just talked about. Research shows sleep and mental health have a strictly bidirectional relationship. What that means is poor sleep and sleep disorders lead directly to mental health problems and emotional dysregulation. And then, in turn, those mental health problems feed right back into poor sleep. It creates either a vicious cycle of burnout and exhaustion, or, if we manage to fix it, a really beautiful, virtuous cycle of equilibrium.
To understand why this cycle is just so powerful, we simply have to look at the neurobiology of sleep deprivation. When you don't sleep, your reactive amygdala's response spikes by a staggering 60%. Yeah, 60. At the exact same time, your brain's connectivity to the logical prefrontal cortex goes way down. You are literally severing the connection that helps you regulate fear and anger. On top of all that, poor sleep disrupts your serotonin and dopamine, depletes your calming GABA levels, and completely prevents your brain from processing emotional memories during REM sleep. So honestly, it's no wonder that workday feels impossible. Section 5. Strategies for emotional equilibrium.
So, the big question, how do we fix this? Now that we deeply understand the problem and the science behind it, let's look at some highly actionable clinical solutions you can use to actually regain your balance. Let's start with cognitive reappraisal. This is a critical antecedent-focused strategy from Gross's model we looked at earlier. Basically, it means rewriting your emotional response before it spirals out of control. You cognitively reframe a situation to alter its emotional impact. For instance, instead of viewing a massive new project at work as a devastating threat to your free time, you intentionally reappraise it as a high-visibility opportunity for professional growth. Doing this literally changes the chemical response in your brain.
Another incredibly practical daily tool is the mindfulness-based stop technique. When you feel a trigger, say you get an infuriating text message, you apply this. S, stop what you are doing. Literally, don't type back. T, take a breath, which physically regulates your nervous system. O, observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Just notice that you've been pushed out of your window of tolerance. And P, proceed with a conscious choice, rather than just going with a reactive impulse. It's so simple, but it inserts a crucial pause between a trigger and a reaction. All right, let's dive into brief cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Now, CBT teaches us that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all bidirectionally linked. A major strategy here is called behavioral activation. Because it is notoriously hard to change our emotions directly, we target our behaviors instead. If you change unhelpful avoidant behaviors like, isolating yourself in your room, and actually force yourself to engage in positive behaviors, it feeds backward to improve your overarching emotional state. Add in some physical grounding techniques, and you've got yourself a seriously powerful toolkit. And of course, because we know sleep is the foundational bedrock of all of this, we absolutely have to regulate our rest. There are 4 main clinical approaches to fixing that sleep emotion loop. First, we have cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia to help restructure your thoughts around sleep. Then pharmacotherapy for acute management if needed. We also have strict sleep hygiene education, like, finally putting down those screens before bed. And lastly, mindfulness-based therapies to help reduce pre-sleep stress. Combining these approaches is exactly how you rebuild your resilience.
Wow, we have covered a lot of fascinating ground today, from role boundaries and your window of tolerance, all the way to the epic battle between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex. I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. Knowing what you know now about the bidirectional relationship between your thoughts, your behaviors, and your rest, which part of your emotional loop are you going to rewrite tonight? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep adjusting your sails, and I will see you next time.